Good evening, Meruchim Habayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class we titled Fire and Fury. Sorry to disappoint, it has nothing to do with the book. That book was as dumb as it ever came. I actually am embarrassed to admit that I spent about 15 minutes reading a few pages of it.
You bought it?
No, I didn't buy it. That dumb I wasn't. But it was a wake-up call a little bit. When I saw the title of the book, it brought me other thoughts. I said, this has been a pretty awkward year in the United States of America, and in the world at large, but in the U.S. for sure. I'm talking about 2017, according to the Christian way of counting. I read some summaries that the different government offices and others put out, and a few of the things that stood out were interesting. That the United States had the largest amount of damage in natural disasters this year than they have ever since they've been recording natural disasters. That's a pretty big statement right there. Largest amount. And it came in all forms. Winds, rain, storms, fire, and mudslides today. Tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And these are very sad things. When these things happen, none of us are happy in any way, shape, or form, because Chazal teach us when the Egyptians were drowning, and the Egyptians were definitely degenerate people that killed Jews and deserved to drown, they deserved the death penalty. Still, God didn't let the angels sing praise. Because he said, Ma'asei yadai tovim bayam v'atem sharim shira. My creation is suffering and you're going to go sing praises now? It's obviously not appropriate. But if this is the case, then there got to be some sort of message. So we associate tragedy with fury, fire and fury, right? So I want to put a little spin on it, that maybe we can actually stick to our positive route of doing things and take an encouraging message out of current events and based on Chazal. And at the end, all the way at the end, if Hashem gives us the health and the strength, we'll tie it into the parasha as well. The Torah teaches us, when I say Torah, I don't mean the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, Chazal and the Midrashim and the Zohar, etc., between them, three different terms for the era that we're living in, and that we've been living in for a while already. One is called Achrit Hayamim. There's psukim about that. Achrit Hayamim, the end of days. The Gemara uses a term called Ikvita de Meshicha. Akev means heel. Ikvita, the heel, meaning the bottom, the time of Mashiach, the back end of the coming of Mashiach. The Gemara also uses another term called Chevlei Mashiach. Chevlei means the birth pains of Mashiach. These are the three terms that Chazal use very frequently, each one in a different context. To understand, for academic purposes, so we should come out sounding a little more intellectual tonight, Ikveta de Meshicha and Chevlei Mashiach in Chazal are normally used under the context of pain, suffering, or tragedy in general. Of course, there are some cases otherwise, but in general. Achrit Hayamim is a very general term, and Adarabah but in a very large percent of the times, it's used in a very positive, optimistic context. What does this have to do with us? So here we go. There is a very famous Gemara. We're going to try and take it apart, piece by piece, sentence by sentence, and maybe hopefully memorize it. The Gemara is very easy to find. It's in Masechet Sotah, Daf Mem Tet Amud Bet, and the reason why it's so easy to find is that's the last Amud in Masechet Sotah, the end of Masechet Sotah. So it's easy to remember. Go to the last page in Sotah, and boom, you got it. The Gemara says this: Be'ikvot Meshicha. In this era that's called Ikveta de Meshicha. What's going to be in that era? What's going to happen? What's the story? So the Gemara describes it. Now remember, this was written in the vicinity of 2,000 years ago, and we're going to see if we see direct prophecy that has to do with today in a way that wasn't previously able to be analyzed, because it wouldn't make sense in the era that this was written. Chutzpah izgeh. Chutzpah, everybody can translate that the way it's convenient for them, but let's generalize and call it a variation of arrogance. Izgeh will get much stronger. Now, obviously, the level of arrogance that both individuals and nations have today, there was never such a thing in history. If you study a little bit history and see the way nations dealt with each other, the language that people use, including presidents, and the threats, and everything else, this is every time we think we heard it all, we suddenly see it's taken one step further. So that's a very general chutzpah that exists in the world. Then, the whole word called respect we use a lot, but in reality has no recollection of existence. And that plays out in many ways, which the Gemara will elaborate in different examples soon. But now in this Gemara is a deeper thing. And listen to something that this was very hard to predict. And this is obviously a prophecy. There were always people, individuals, they were a very large minority, but there were individuals that had chutzpah throughout history. That's not a new thing. But those people were the problematic ones. They were viewed as those who are troubled. Today, in the name of arrogance, you can actually grow and become famous and become a star and a celebrity. And the crazier a rapper's words are, the more views he has on YouTube. And the crazier the lyrics of a song or the idea behind the movie is, the more money it makes when it comes down to it. That means chutzpah is a goal. It's not a middleman. It's a goal of people. People deliberately make the choice to be that way because they think that they can grow through doing that. That's a whole new idea. That didn't exist before in history. Next, hayokel ya'amir. That's called inflation. Inflation will go up, but it's not inflation as a result of supply and demand, that we have a lack of demand versus the supply that's available. A lack of supply versus the demand that's available. The Gemara says clearly, hagefen titen pilya, v'hayayin biyoker. That means there'll be plenty of produce, there'll be plenty of everything, but anyway, wine will still be extremely costly. Now, in case you want to know a classic example of insanity when it comes to pricing, we don't have to go so far. One word, Bitcoin. You know, thank God, little by little, what we said a few weeks ago in the Shiurim is happening, and it's going to happen all the way, I'm sure. But in the interim, somebody's insanity, a crazy idea, came together with some crazy people, and now something that's not worth a penny can be worth thousands. That means that the reality of what people want or need and the way we gauge the price on that product, one has nothing to do with the other. There's no connection. Now, you got to remember, old marketplaces, years back, before currency was the way we did things, worked on barter. In the barter system, eliminating capitalism that didn't exist, there is no way to do that. Barter is supply and demand. You need this, I need that. So that means when the Gemara wrote this, to predict that there'll be a day that supply won't be an issue and demand will be relatively low in comparison to supply, and anyway prices will be crazy high, that's a prophecy that's against the rationale at the time that it was written in, and it's a direct prophecy to Yemot HaMashiach. If we take it a step further, we know of another concept that today in produce this is extremely common. When the farmers have too much produce and as a result their scared prices will go down, they destroy the produce. In case I don't follow so much the American way of doing things, but in Israel in 2005, they had an issue that there were too many eggs. They had a blessed year of eggs, and they didn't want the price of eggs to go down per dozen. So I don't remember the exact number, but it was over 100 million eggs were dumped in the ocean. Hagefen titen et pilyo. There'll be produce. We won't be lacking anything. But v'hayayin biyoker. It'll still cost a lot of money. Fuel is another classic example. We're not lacking fuel right now in the world, even though people want to convince us that we are. It's convenient to make this whole scene of how the demand is so great and the supply is running out, because in relative to the price of the barrel, when the barrel is high, tax revenue is higher, or other calculations that they have, and it looks good, and commodities also, the trading works out well, but there's no grasp in reality. Israel right now has access to energy that can supply a large part of the world for 25 years at least. That's a very low figure. And gas prices in Israel are still over 6 shekel a liter, and they're not going down anytime soon. Meaning the reality of what is and how much it's valued at has no connection. There is another factor, and the other factor is tax. Even if a manufacturer would decide that he wants to reduce his product to a certain price point, not always is that going to actually affect the end result of the product. And the reason being is very simple. Because the mitziyut, the factual end of things is that the government also has to make money. And if product is too cheap, they can't make enough money. So they maintain a certain price point, and they maintain a certain tax bracket that sometimes gets higher and higher for no reason in order to reap their benefits. That also, in the times of Chazal, didn't exist. Tax on product wasn't the way they did it. They had tax on gold and on other things. So once again, another example of how the Gemara breaks down nowadays in a way that then had nothing to do with the facts. Malchut tehafech leminut. And the government, and this obviously is talking about the government in the Jewish state, in the land of Israel, will be a government with an atheistic agenda. Throughout the Jewish history, there were always atheists. And there were always those who didn't like the Torah so much and had different issues with it. That's not a new thing. Apikosim existed from day one. Chazal say, the entire Torah was written in a way that we leave an opportunity for people to make mistakes. And it was done so for a reason, which is a discussion for a different day. But that malchut, that the governing body can openly announce minut, that they don't care, that they're anti, that even in the days of the greatest Rishaim didn't exist. There were many Rishaim in Am Yisrael that were murderers, that were kings or leaders. There were many that stopped the Jews from going to the temple and other things like that and doing certain mitzvot and so on. But they never came out in an open fight against God, the name God. That was their red line. They were scared. Today, that no longer exists, unfortunately. You got political parties in Israel that very freely will say that their whole agenda is, we're going to keep transportation open on Shabbat, we're going to do everything anti-religious, and even those that want to stick up for the religious end of things are scared to do so because suddenly you won't be so popular in your vote anymore. That is a new concept that once again we have today. The ein tochachat, we spoke about this in a different context a few weeks ago, that today you can't criticize anybody. You can't rebuke anybody. You can't even correct somebody. There's no way. Today a mother tries to tell her 3-year-old that it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up his toys, and a few years later he's in a therapist's office saying he's an abused child. Unfortunately, you're laughing because you know I'm not exaggerating. That's the world that we're in. The ein tochachat. There's no way that you could ever tell somebody, maybe you're making a mistake, maybe there's a better way to do this, maybe you should wake up and smell the coffee or something. There's no way. Teachers quit teaching jobs one after another. I heard countless stories over the years because it's a waste of time. I got nobody to talk to. I try to teach a kid the right way to do something and he says, you're old-fashioned. I found on Wikipedia otherwise. So there's no value to education, there's no value to academics, and definitely there's no value to hearing what you don't want to hear. When a generation has no will to hear another opinion and to understand it, and to maybe take it into serious consideration, a generation like that is really asking itself to hit some sort of dead end. More than that, today if you are against a certain, I have to be very politically correct right now, type of people or choice of dress or other examples, and each one should use his own imagination so I don't come out the bad guy now, then you're a bad person. If you don't hire an employee because of certain things, you will actually get a lawsuit for it. The Department of Labor will come after you. Meaning, what the Torah may call to'eva, the government says, you have no right to choose in that. It's open. Everything's out in the open. When there's a generation that everything is completely out in the open, and the one who thinks against what used to be the norm is the bad guy, if we want to believe that marriage is the way it was in all the generations, so we're the primitive ones, and the trendy thing is to be the other way around, so then what's left? At that point, of course you're not going to accept what anybody else says, because nobody can tell you anything in the first place. Because if they do, they're the bad person. What crazy views do you got? Be quiet, keep them to yourselves. And you become very unpopular very quickly. Then there's another thing. Chazal HaKadoshim teach us, Leitzana achad docha, just one mockery can push off 100 tochachot. Even 100 times tochacha, one mockery can blow it all away. Today, making fun of things is a profession. aka late night television and all the night shows that we have no end to in the US and in the world at large. That's an actual profession. To sit and make fun of anything normal in the world. And people make millions of dollars a year salary because they're good at making fun of all norms. And that's in the name of art. That's an artist. Somebody who will make fun of anything that makes sense, he's an artist. We put him on a pedestal. Instead of saying, I'm embarrassed to even turn that on, no, that's already, that's where we're at. So in a generation that everything revolves around leitzanut, so of course tochacha is not going to work even if it's said. And maybe we even hit a point that you're not allowed to give tochacha anymore because Chazal teach us, Keshem shemitzvah lomar davar hanishma, just like there's a mitzvah to say something that's going to be heard, kach mitzvah, so too there's a mitzvah shelo lomar, not to say davar sheino mishtamea, something that won't be heard. I'll tell you a crazy story. When I was a young kid, I think I was 8 years old, I was in class one day, and my Rebbe was trying to bring us a little bit closer to the concept of Biat HaMashiach. Now, he didn't want to teach us this Gemara that I'm teaching now because there's so many elements of it that seem a little bit towards the helpless, negative side. So he picked a very optimistic thing to talk about. Seudat Orosh Shel Leviatan. He spent close to an hour, I think it was a 50-minute period, literally bringing down to us as if it was live, as if we were experiencing it, Biat Mashiach, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has this feast called Seudat Orosh Shel Leviatan that the tzaddikim are going to have to be rewarded for sticking loyal to their faith and their commandments throughout the generations. And we were 32 kids in the class, I even remember the number, and we were 32 troublemakers. And that was one of the few days that he didn't have any trouble the whole day. Everybody was like blown away. He did such a good job. We all wanted to fit in that righteous category. That Orosh Shel Leviatan Mashiach thing worked. And all the way at the end of the class, there was one kid who couldn't deal with the fact that we're all actually listening for a change and not turning the place upside down. But what's he going to do? Nobody's interested in trouble now. This is actually interesting. We were feeling good. So it was the end of the period, and right before we go out to break, he raises his hand. I was 8. I remember this as if it was yesterday. And the rabbi was happy. He actually showed interest. This is a kid that never showed interest in any studies. And he says, yes, well, what is it? He says, Rabbi, your speech was unbelievable. What you taught us was amazing, but I just have one serious problem. So he said, what? He said, I don't like fish. And instantly, everything the man invested 50 minutes in went down the drain in 1 second. Leitzana achad, one way of mockery, tocha elif tochachot. All the tochacha in the world is not going to help. Just one, boom, one person pushes something off. That's it. It's all over. More than that, today we took it even a step further. We have people that were entertainers, aka actors and others, that currently hold political positions. Meaning from being leitzanim, from using leitzanut as a profession, instead of being looked down at, there was a whole population who later on went and voted for them. And said, this Letz is a celebrity, is a star, I want him to lead me. Even though, what does he know about leadership? That's how far this took. Ve'ein tochachat. When leitzanut is so strong, of course, there'll never be any tochachat. Then the Gemara says one sentence, which I think none of us, we don't need to elaborate on. Beit va'ad yeh liznut. Even a beit va'ad l'chachamim, even the place, meaning even in the elite of the universities, unfortunately, kedusha and tzniut won't exist. Our Ivy League schools, in the majority, consider themselves liberal. Even those who call themselves Catholic, they still have to have liberal views. And in the name of being a liberal, you can do anything. I'm a liberal, that's it. At that point, do whatever you want. And this is in a Beit Vad LaChachamim, Chochmah Chitzonit. And Lo Aleinu, it even hit the Orthodox community as well. The Galil is the northern part of Israel. Yecherav will be destroyed. And on this, there's a couple of ways to explain it. I think the simplest way is, I don't know if you know the map of Israel well, but if you do, the majority of the northern part of Israel currently is occupied by Arabs. Whether Bedouin Arabs that are actually friendly with the Israelis in general, Druzis, or terrorist Arabs. But one way or the other, the majority of the territory is. Yeah. So we're in control of the Golan Heights, and we can go to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, thank God, safely, but at the end of the day, we don't live there. We don't control the area. Number 2, if you live in Jerusalem, And it got expensive here. Jerusalem is an expensive city. And now you want to move somewhere that's more affordable. You're living in a one-bedroom apartment in Jerusalem, you're paying $1,500 a month rent, you have 3 kids, it's not working. So where would you find a beautiful, affordable house? In the northern part of Israel, go to Kiryat Shmona, for example, you'll find a beautiful house for the same price, if not less. And you're not going to move there. You know why you're not going to move there? It's nicer, your house will be bigger, the environment's gorgeous. It's a place to vacation. A lot of us went there on vacations and on Birthright and on Birth Wrong and on all of them, whatever it is. There's one track that's Birthright, there's the other track that's Birth Wrong, depending what the guidelines of Kushan Sniut were over there. So it's a great place to be for a day. But to live, they don't want to live there. And you ask them, why not? Why would you live in a packed city that's full of traffic for a fortune of money in a one-bedroom apartment? Instead of moving there to a gorgeous place, you live like a king for a fraction of the price. And the answer is very unfortunate, that there's no income there. There's no jobs. You live in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, and these in big cities, it's very easy to get a job. You live all the way up north, what job? You may not have a job at all, and even if you do, it's going to pay you pennies, so suddenly the dollars don't work out anymore. So that means you can have territory that's gorgeous, that's pleasant to live in, that's available, but it's not worth anything to you. Because unless you have a financial infrastructure for people to be able to live there, it's not going to work. That's another way of a self-destructive pattern to the northern side of Israel. And in the Second Lebanese War, when we had a whole bunch of rockets coming into Israel, I think we understood that in a whole new level. But then, the Gemara, there's 2 Gilsot in the Gemara. One is Vagavlan Yisum, the other one is Vagolan Yisum. But Vagolan is the Golan Heights. Is going to be empty. What does that mean the Golan is going to be empty? The Golan's actually pretty happening. Definitely in the winter when there's snow, and in the summer when it's beautiful weather there. So what's going on over there? So it's very interesting. I don't know if you've been following what's going on in Syria lately, but Syria used to be Israel's big fear. Currently, they're starting to forget about Syria already. So that guy we can deal with easily. We got a new problem, that Iran, under the radar, while the world was busy with Syria, or not busy enough, but was talking about it, at least in theory, went and sponsored, with the money that Barack Hussein Obama gave them, billions of dollars to the Hezbollah, a terrorist organization, to arm themselves to fight Israel one day. So right now on the northern border of Israel, the Hezbollah, which is a guerrilla organization, has ammunition on the level of a real country. Hashem should wipe them all out in 1 second with their own ammunition. Right. And all of this was done by an American president, Hussein. This Hussein guy went and gave money to Iran to give to the Hezbollah to wipe out Israel. Yeah, it's not politically correct to say that, but as Jews, maybe we should know, so from now on, before we vote, we realize who we're voting for. And our number one thing in our election should be who's the one who's going to at least preach that will care about Israel more. And that's the only thing that we care about when we vote. The rest of it makes no difference. And this is what's going on. Hashem should watch over us. Of course, we soon will say that all this doesn't have to be so negative. It could actually be very positive. But the concept definitely exists today in a clear way more than ever. Ve'anshei hagvul, and the border people, yisavevu me'ir le'ir ve'lo yichonanu, will go from city to city, and nobody will have pity on them, meaning nobody will feel for them. There will be no compassion for them. There are a few ways to explain this Gemara and Mfarshim. One way is that Israel won't have borders. And now when you hear that, you say, what do you mean? Israel has very, very defined borders. I don't mean the UN's craziness. I mean our way of viewing it. The answer is very simple. What is a border? This is where my territory, and this is where you stay out of. And if I can't get you to stay out of my territory, so it's a virtual border at that point. It's not an actual border. In Jerusalem, the heart, the capital of the state of Israel, we have degenerates, Bnei Yishmael, that come with knives, guns, and anything else that they can get their hands on, and stab people and soldiers freely, and we're scared to do anything almost. Because it doesn't look right to the world when we kill a few of these terrorists. So there's no border anymore. They decide what the border is. They decide that today they don't want you to go to the old city of Jerusalem. They put up some act of terror. And there's not only in Israel, there's anywhere in the world. If tomorrow, God forbid, they wanted to shut down any city in the world, All they got to do is one little scare, and boom, for 12 hours, everything's closed down. Sometimes for 12 days too, as we've seen in other countries in Europe. That means that we have virtual borders. We claim that we own territory. We claim that we control territory. But in reality, these soul degenerate idiots are the ones who actually control the territory. That's a prophecy of the Gemara. The borders will have no value anymore. But then there's another part. In Israel, there is a unit. They used to be considered a very elite unit. That was a division of the police/military that was called Mishmar HaGvul, Border Patrol. I remember as a yeshiva student learning in Israel, when you saw somebody from the Mishmar HaGvul, you right away said, wow, this guy's a real fighter. There was a certain respect for that. Unfortunately, and I won't get into all the politics behind it and how it happened, today, Mishmar HaGvul are considered the bad guys in Israel. People they're not even nice to them. They don't even respect them. And these are kids that are risking their lives day in, day out to protect those civilians that aren't giving them the respect. It's very unfortunate. This began when Arik Sharon had a bad day and decided to take over 10,000 Jews out of their homes from Gush Katif and sent Mishmar HaGvul to go do the job. And they had no choice. They had to do it. But at that point, nobody liked seeing a Jew taking another Jew out of their home. So right then and there, everything went down the drain. But from there, it got worse and worse over the course of time. And these are the ones that suffer many losses, especially with this late wave of terror the past 2 years. The soul terrorists, we'll call them. They should be held up on high on a pedestal. They're at high risk and they do an amazing job. And still, they're sent from city to city every time wherever there's a problem. And nobody cares. Nobody has any mercy or pity or anything or respect for them. V'chochmat sofrim tisrach, and the wisdom of Talmidei Chachamim, people will say, stinks. Otherwise known as the Gemara says in Perek Chelek in Sanhedrin, Ma yahanu li Rabbanan. What do I need these yeshiva students for? How many times did we hear in the past few years the yeshiva students are parasites? Let them go work. How many times did a girl want to go out with a boy, but he wasn't in college, and lehavdil, he was learning the Torah of Hashem Yitbarach, and her father said, I won't come to the wedding, because what? He won't be able to support you. Everybody heard that before? That's a prophecy of the Gemara. In Jewish history, nobody ever dreamt that there would be such a situation. The one time that the Gemara documents a situation like that, Kalba Savua with Rachel Eshet Rabbi Akiva wasn't a Talmid Chacham. It was the opposite was the problem, that he was an Amaretz. And the second he found out that he was a Talmid Chacham, he gave him everything he owned. He's a yeshiva student, he doesn't do anything himself. Let him go get a job. I have to support him. How many times did we hear that? The Gemara clearly says, you want to know when Mashiach's coming? When there's going to be a time that Chochmat Sofrim Tisrach, that the wisdom of Talmidei Chachamim is going to begin losing its value. Mayahanu li Rabbanan. If we got the days that young boys and girls can walk around the streets, can drive around the streets in fancy cars, and then see a rabbi driving a fancy car as well and saying, why does he drive such a car? Then we got to the ultimate day of Chochmat Sofrim Tisrach. You degenerate. This is the one who, because of you have panasah at all. This person who's sitting and studying, his sacrifice, Fami says, is what's bringing you your whole blessing. And you should drive the fancy one and he should drive the one that doesn't work? Just the opposite. You should drive the one that doesn't work and he should drive the fancy one. But people have a hard time hearing it. Chochmat Sofrim Tisrach. There's no value for the chokhmah, for the wisdom of the Holy Torah that the Talmidei Chachamim and Gedolei Hador have. Vir'ei chet im asu. I'm just quoting a Gemara here. Those who fear God, you're going to say, I'm sick of him. I'm sick of them. What does that mean? I remember a boy who worked for us in Israel. One day went to shiur, and something about it turned his head around in a good way, and he came into the office the next day with a kippah on his head. Overnight, kid went from whatever he was at to wearing a kippah. I don't know if it lasted or not. I'm not in touch with him, but definitely for one morning it lasted. You know what everybody asked him that morning? 2 words in Hebrew: Mi met, who died? Because the association in Israel of wearing a kippah is going to a funeral, so out of respect you put on a kippah. So they assumed he went to a funeral that morning and forgot to take his kippah off. So mi met, who died today? And that boy with his brilliance turned around and told all the guys in the office without any fear, "Atem רוצים לדעת מי מת? You want to know who died? היצר הרע שלי מת. My יצר הרע finally died." What a brave boy. But that's Yirei Chet, the kippah, the Gemara says, it's not a matter of halakha if you have to or not have to. Shulchan Aruch says you should wear a kippah, the Gaon disagrees with that, so there may be some leniency when need be, not to wear a kippah. But Yirat Shamayim, the Gemara says, definitely it brings. The Marsha is a chidush that the bigger a person's kippah is, the more Yirat Shamayim it'll bring him. That's the Marsha's chidush. So Yirei Chet, the symbol of Yirat Shamayim, Imasu, people are going to make a mockery out of. They're going to make fun of. Number one. Number two, your friend calls you. It's my birthday tonight. My party is in this place, Shalom Nida, and 9 o'clock I expect to see you there. And you're a strong person. And you say, "I'm sorry, I love you, you're great, it's your birthday, happy birthday, assuming it's a Jewish birthday, not a Christian one. But I cannot attend because it's Thursday and it's 9 o'clock and I go to Shiur Torah." And you stay strong and you don't go. By the birthday, when you're missing, is everybody going to say, "Wow, what a strong boy or girl that he went to that didn't come"? He became fanatic. She became nuts. What's going on? What's the shiur that he's going to? They're brainwashing him. This is crazy. A birthday? To miss a birthday? Hashem Yerachem. What's going to be? Tragedy struck. Yirei Chet, you had a little Yirat Shamayim, not to go to a waste of time. And to go study Torah, Yim Asu. People have complaints about it. People make fun of it. Instead of saying, "Wow, look at him, he changed his life around," suddenly it becomes, he's the extremist. Ve'ha'emet tiyeh ne'ederet. An intellectual truth will be, the Gemara says, "Mai tiyeh ne'ederet," is a Gemara in Sanhedrin Tzadik Rav, or Tzadik Zayin actually. The Gemara says, "Mai tiyeh ne'ederet," what does it mean ne'ederet? Tiyeh adarim adarim. Melamed shena'aset adarim adarim. Will be groups. Truth is only one. Throughout history, there were many philosophers that were sincerely truth seekers. And they came up with all different theories of what they thought was right and wrong and true and false. And years later, some of their own students, at many times, disproved them. And they conceded, or society conceded, and then they went on to what they thought was the next truth. And the battle for truth always existed. Today, that no longer exists. Today we say, to each his own. Live and let live. What do you mean live and let live? There's one right and wrong. There's no two rights and wrongs. It's either right or wrong. There's no gray. There's black and white in this world. But that doesn't exist anymore. To you this is true, and to me that's true. You want to live this way. I want to live that way. What do you want from me? Leave me alone. To the point that there is a protection in the law that if you're doing something in your own private territory that can't harm anybody else or can't detrimentally harm yourself, and you're on your own property and it's done privately without anybody seeing, you can pretty much do whatever you want. The Torah doesn't have that. Afilu b'chadrei chadarim. If you want, it comes from exactly this: live and let live. Mind your own business. What do you mean? But live an honest life. You don't care to live an honest life? No. Honesty is not something that people care about anymore. Just the opposite. The honest are the outcast. They're not the majority. They're the outcast today. And who would have dreamt that such a thing could actually happen? Especially in a world that considers themselves advanced and so intellectual. We were able to send rockets to space, but we can't send our brain to find a little bit of truth. That's a very morbid reality of things. It's a very, if you think about it. But the same thing applies within the Torah mitzvot community. Machlokot in Chazal, they always were. The whole Gemara is one big machloket. Beit Shamayim, Beit Hillel, Abaye, and Rava, and on and on and on and on and on. But each one respected each other. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, even though they disagreed on the kashrut of a child, they still married their children one to another. Because that we disagree in halakha doesn't mean that we aren't best friends. One has nothing to do with the other. Today, in the name of God, we make groups and sects. I don't go to that shul. I don't belong to this group. I don't this. I'm anti that. Each one has an agenda. Va'emet tiyeh ne'ederet. I tell these people, I feel bad for you because Hashem doesn't like what you're doing, and one day He'll ask you about it. But you are bringing Mashiach closer. The Gemara says clearly that Mashiach is going to come because of this type of stupidity. Ne'arim pnei zkenim yalbinu. Youngsters will embarrass the elders. I don't think we have to explain that much. What do we consider our parents? Primitive. We're the iPhone generation. What do they know? My dad doesn't even know how to turn on a computer, kids tell me. He said he was blessed. His mind is less corrupted than yours. He doesn't know anything. What does he know? I'm the technology era. I'm where it's at. Dad, what do you know? You don't even know how to look on Google. You don't. Nothing. Very sad. Life experience is priceless. Suddenly that doesn't exist. Elders will stand because of the younger generation. I'm going to break this down to you in a practical story that my uncle Rav Yaakov Yagen and Shani Badel Chaim Tovim and I witnessed together in 1991 or 1992 in Israel. Rav Nissim, even though he was definitely in the latter years of his life, extremely famous, popular, and had a following of over 100,000, and that's a very low number, lived a very simplistic, humble life. One of the things that used to blow us away was in Israel, he would take buses. And in Manhattan, he would take subways. This rabbi could have had 80 drivers, not one. People would fight to drive him somewhere. He said, I don't need it. And when a guy would insist, no, I'll be a driver for a week, I'm off anyway from work, what do you care about, whatever. So if he thought the guy needs chizuk or that, so he would let for his sake. But if he felt it was a favor for him, so his excuse was, I'm very claustrophobic. A bus, there's a lot of room, I feel comfortable. A car, I feel, I can't. It's too tight for me. In Manhattan, Syrian Jews are big mechabdei Torah in general, and they would see that he would go on trains, they would beg him, you're embarrassing him, what are you doing? Why are you going on the subway? He said, I don't know better than anybody else. What do I need more than that for? What's the problem? The only time one guy succeeded to beat him on the whole thing, and then he allowed to get him a driver, was he said, Rabbi, the Gemara says that for Shmirat Einayim, you're not allowed to go to a place that has chitzut. He said, if we have a driver for you, he'll pick you up by the door with tinted windows, you won't be able to see out, and it's better for Shmirat Einayim. Then, that day he conceded. But besides for that, there was no concession on this subject. One day he tells me, Yaakov, I was a young kid, well, let's go to the Kotel. Okay. I'm sure we're going downstairs and either a cab or a driver, right? My uncle, the big rabbi. And he takes me half a block and we're waiting out in the heat. It was August for a bus. I think it was Shiva Sabbat Tammuz. I said, come on. I'm a guest, Achnasat Orchim, don't take me on a bus. He said, what's wrong with the bus? We get onto the bus. Shiva Sabbat Tammuz, many Jews go to the Kotel. Many Jews. The bus was packed. Nowhere to sit. Walk around, people saw him, one guy got up for him, there was one seat near there empty, somehow we snuck 2 seats, we had seats. 2 stops after we got on, even though this happened then, I still remember the details, that's what an impact it made on him. An elderly lady, I don't know how to gauge age, but if I had to make up an age, I would say definitely somebody who was over 80, gets onto the bus, with not just a regular cane, almost like a walker. And she needed help to get on and everything. There's no seats. What would we think would happen? That everybody would jump up to give her a seat, no? That would be the normal thing. That's what happened. A few people right away got up to give her the front seat, the front few seats, to offer her whatever she wants. And she said no. And I said, what do you mean? You can't stand, it's not safe. So she pointed at one row over. There was a kid who was sitting, he looked like a 13, 14-year-old boy, sitting there, and a seat near him had a little dog on it, which was his dog. And she said, what does somebody have to get up for me? I'll go sit near this young boy. She goes, walks 1 or 2 steps towards that seat, and the boy says, man, where do you think you're going? He says, well, I want to sit down. He said, the seat's occupied, you don't see? So he said, so take your dog and put it on your lap so I should have where to sit. Talk about an 80-year-old woman with a walker. He takes out this white little piece of paper. He says, I paid for him. I bought him a seat. So some guy that was sitting in a row behind got angry already. He said, so I'll reimburse you, just give it a seat. And he says, it's about time these old ladies should learn to respect dogs. I'll never forget that my whole life. I was a young child. It's about time these old ladies should learn to respect dogs. Zkenim ya'amdu mipnei ktanim. She almost fainted, the poor lady. elders will end up having to stand, not ktanim, people ktanim, even for a dog. Halavai, we should treat people the way dogs get treated today. If all the money that was invested in all these organizations that are saving stranded dogs would be invested in saving kids that have opiate addictions, then the death rate in the U.S. would go down drastically in a matter of days, maybe days or weeks. It's unreal. More than that, today in schools, people call their teachers by the first name as if it was his best friend. He's your teacher. He's your Rebbe. He's teaching you Torah. Where's your respect? Nothing. He owes me. My father pays tuition. He's getting paid. He owes me. I heard that from boys. That's how I know that this exists. Ben minavel av. A son will disgrace his father. That's way too familiar. Ask all the therapists what they hear all day. Bat kama be'ima. A daughter goes to fight her mother. This in many areas happens, but in one of the most common areas that mothers tell me today is kid's about to leave the house and she forgot to get dressed. It's 0 degrees outside, but she still forgot to wear clothes. And her mother reminds her, by the way, half your skirt is missing and half your shirt is missing. Maybe you should put on some clothing. And she attacks her mother. Boy, you want me to look like an old lady like you? Bug off, mind your own business. And she storms out. What? It's your mother. She raised you. She gave her life for you. What are you doing? Even if you don't want to. Just for the sake of peace. Just for the sake of respect. At least fake it. Say one thing, do the other. I don't know what. Cover up, wear a long coat before you. At least that much. No, it's a free world. Me? What are you talking about? My mother's going to tell me what to do? Then the Gemara continues and says, this one we don't even have to explain, I think. Kala b'chamota. A daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law. Good luck to that one. If a daughter-in-law doesn't get along with her mother-in-law, by the way, that's not a question. If she does, we have to ask what's wrong. Yeah, no, the Gemara talks about straight through Shas, Kala v'chamuta. That's why we advise people not to live near their parents, because it's unhealthy for a marriage. Oivei ish, a person's greatest enemies, anshei beito, are the people of his own household. What does that mean? So there's 2 pshatim. One simple pshat is, how many families do you know that fell apart over fights of money? How many brothers don't talk to each other over a fight over an inheritance? Lo aleinu, we should never know. But there's a different answer that's a lot deeper than this. How many people are self-hating Jews? Hashem's Bayit, Hashem's home, since the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, is the Jewish nation around the world. How many self-hating Jews are there? How many Jews vote against Jewish things? How many Jews in the United States of America voted against Israel in different situations based on the people that they chose to elect as president? Oivei ish, who's Am Yisrael's biggest enemy going to be? Anshei beito, its own people. A self-hating, self-destructive pattern. Pnei ado kipnei hakelev. Rashi on this has 2 pshatim. One pshat is that the literal way people are going to look is going to be similar to dogs. That we have to explain, right? It doesn't make. We don't understand that. The other explanation Rashi has is that a dog has no shame, and will be in a generation that'll have no shame. There was once somebody who wrote a book, a brilliant book about family values and family issues, called "Does Anybody Blush Anymore?" No shame. You remember that book? Does anybody blush anymore? No shame. It used to be that if a yeshiva boy wanted to do something that was against halacha, he went into hiding and prayed 600 times before he came back to yeshiva that nobody should find out about it. This is me. Accept me for who I am. And if not, you're the bad guy. There's nothing to accept me. Accept me for who I am. That's what Rashi writes. Aklavim azei nefesh. The chutzpah will bring that there's no busha, there's nothing to be embarrassed of anymore. But I saw an unbelievable thing. I actually wasted time looking this up because at the end of the day, Rashi has another pshat. That people are going to look like dogs. And I didn't understand that. What does Rashi mean? So I looked up online. It took me a few minutes, not long. And I saw that there's a crazy thing that goes on in this world. In a bunch of countries. I first thought it was one little place. We had a bunch of countries and tons of states in the U.S. They have these competitions that people come with their dogs and they take this literal, you could check this afterwards, and they take pictures with their dogs and they get a prize, and each place is a different amount of money, for the guy who looks most similar to his dog. It's true, there you go, he also knows about it. I didn't know about it till I checked into this. Who would believe that this would become a thing, that people would go out of their way to look like their dog? Unreal. Unreal. It's like the lady went into a pet shop one day, she wanted to buy an outfit for her dog. So this one is too big, this one's too small, this one the color is not that. So the owner got upset already and said, just bring the dog in and we'll fit her. Or him, or whatever the dog was. So the lady says, no, it's his birthday, I have to make him a surprise. That's Pnei Adol ki Pnei HaKelev. That's Pnei Adol ki Pnei HaKelev. There'll be a day that people look like dogs, they'll behave like everything. But the Chafetz Chaim on this comes and says something much more. He takes it a step further. He says, pay attention to the dog. You have a dog. Nobody should have a dog here. It's a bad idea. But if somebody has a dog and he's walking on the street, the dog doesn't go beside him. It runs ahead. How far ahead does it run? Till the street corner, till the intersection. Then what does it do? It stops, it looks back and it waits to see where to go next. Comes the Chafetz Chaim and says, Pnei Hador, the leaders of the generation, ki Pnei HaKelev, will behave like dogs. They'll quote unquote be the ones that are the leaders, the presidents, the heads, but they'll always be looking back. Is the community happy with me? Am I going to get voted in next time again? Is this doing good for my ratings? And based on that, they're going to call their shots. How many times an hour does a politician change his mind today? And they have a great excuse from it. Where you see from here, you don't see from there, or however they say that stupid thing. But okay, that you could say once. But every day, 20 times a day? Pnei Adol ki Pnei HaKelev. How do I get votes? My ratings went down, I'll say this. My ratings went up, I'll say that. Everything's ratings, ratings, ratings. Publicists decide for us the way the leaders are supposed to lead. Lo aleinu velo alechem. This hit even the Torah Judaism as well. If a rabbi today in almost any community would get up and say that not covering your hair is a problem of Isur Doraita every second of the day, and maybe a serious, serious issue to take up with God one day, he's fired. That's it, it's over. That day he has no job. Pnei Hador, even the rabbis, ki Pnei HaKelev, have to kiss up to people all day. They can't even quote a simple halakha in Shulchan Aruch. They'll be scared what the community is going to say. And the sickest part is that they justify it. At least we should say, okay, it's a sickness, what should we do? No, they're not ready, we're not on that level yet, I got to do things this way, that way, and there's whole philosophies behind it. Yeah, that's what it became. That's really what it became. And the one who has the craziest ideas, he's considered the most advanced and the most popular and the most all different fancy things. Haben eino mitbayesh me'aviv. A child is not going to be embarrassed of his father. I don't know. Everybody can translate this in any way they'd like, but I can just tell you from personal experience. When I was at a very young age, I developed a terrible habit called smoking cigarettes, which I hold on to until this very day. Maybe one day Hashem will help me stop that too. I don't know if it's the right thing. At a certain point, my father once asked me, do you smoke? I don't lie. So I told him yes. So he said, I'm very upset at you. So I was sure he was going to tell me, you got to stop smoking, this is crazy, it's unhealthy, it's this, it's that. He said, whether you smoke or not, that I can't argue with you on. There was some delays, so they did, there were others that didn't. That's not my subject. But you know I travel internationally all the time. In the store back then, I'll write today, cigarettes costed about $2.40. In the duty free, it was like $1 and something a pack, or whatever, under $2 a pack. He said, why waste money? Tell me and I'll bring you cigarettes. And I was a young yeshiva boy, my father with his brilliance used to bring me cigarettes. That today in today's parenting classes may not work. A lot of people won't like that system, but yeah, that's what used to happen. But now let me tell you why I'm saying this. In all the years that I've smoked, in my life, there was never a situation I smoked a cigarette near my father. Even though he was the one who supplied the cigarettes. More than that, if he asked me for a cigarette for himself, I would give him a cigarette with a light and everything, but I wouldn't smoke near him. I would still go around the corner and smoke someone else. And there were times that we were traveling different places in the world together, Israel, Europe, other places, and I would stop on the way to smoke a cigarette, and he would yell at me. He would tell me, you're wasting my time, just smoke in the car, open the window, it doesn't bother me. I say, sorry, Dad, not capable. Today, when I say this over, the 20-year-olds look at me like I'm nuts. Well, why not? Let him deal with it. I'm telling you, not let him deal with it, he supplied it. It's more than let him deal with it. Still, minimal respect. Today people have no problem walking into a shul like this and a cigarette. His vape, a cigarette now, it's illegal in New York. The guy's vaping in the middle of Shachris. What? You're in the middle of talking to Hashem. Put your vape away. What's your problem? No problem at all. There's no, the busha of Aviv, your physical father, and Avinu Shebashamayim, and our Father in heaven, doesn't exist anymore. And then the Gemara concludes with one thing. And most people misunderstand this Gemara and think that this is a prayer. This is not a prayer. This is one of the signs. The Gemara is saying the signs of the days of Mashiach. Ve'alma lanu li'shaim. And what do we have to lean on? Al Avinu Shebashamayim. When the Gemara is concluding this era, it's called Yemot HaMashiach. The Gemara is concluding this era in a very interesting way. And the final sign of Yemot HaMashiach is going to be that everybody will understand that there's nothing for mankind to do anymore to help the situation. And the only thing left is to pray, and pray some more that maybe God helps and rectifies the situation. I don't remember the exact details, so if somebody knows, please tell me. But I vaguely read a headline on my phone one day that some Apple investors are campaigning that they have to start investing money to help treat children with iPhone addictions. Is that precise, right? That's more or less what I read, I think, in the headline. I didn't read the article. That's what I read one day this week. And the government's definitely talking about this a lot lately. Is there a way to treat a technological addiction? No, because when a kid was born with it and that's all he knows from the first day, there is no treatment for it anymore. It's a waste of time. That's a classic example. They have an opiate crisis in the U.S. for years already. It got much worse in the past 3 years. They're passing stricter laws, more regulations. Cancer patients can't even get medication anymore because it's all part of the doctor's scared to prescribe. Did the numbers go down? No, they actually went up. But wait a minute, you made all these new laws and the sentencing guidelines became much more extreme and everything. Because Baruch was showing you something, it's not going to work. And last but not least, what we started off with. All the technology in the world. Could it stop a hurricane or a mudslide or an earthquake or a fire or anything else that we experienced in the past year that caused all this damage? No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Ve'ein lanu al min yishayin." I'm going to bring you to a point that you'll realize that your only answer is me. You have nowhere to run away to except for me. There's nowhere to go. This is what we learn in this week's parasha. At the end of this week's parasha, and this was all a build-up for this, we learned that Moshe Rabbeinu came to God, and he wanted to protect the Jews, and God sends him to Paro, and not only doesn't it help, it seems to cause damage. And Moshe Rabbeinu gets upset, Kaviyachol, at Hashem. "Me'az bati ledaber b'shimcha hera la'am hazeh." Since I did what you told me, God, it became worse for me, so it doesn't come better. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers him, "Atat tireh." Now you're going to see what I'm going to do to Paro, and that was the real beginning of Geulat Mitzrayim. I want to understand something. What changed? What changed over there is that until then, they used to give them hay, or whatever it was, in order to make, let's call it cement, in order to make bricks to build. Then they said, no, they have to go out to the fields to get it. We're not supplying them with the material, with the raw material for the bricks. The Jews were there for a couple hundred years. They were killed, they were persecuted, the firstborn were killed, they were using children as bricks, mass murder. In the scheme of all the tragedy that they were in the slavery that they were in, this little fact is a big deal. It's a microscopic detail in the story. So if Hashem wanted to make circumstances worse, why did we take such a tiny thing? And if that wasn't the goal, so what's atayadati? Now everybody's going to be redeemed. What's now? What changed now suddenly? That we added on this little detail into all the horror that was already? Big question. Many Sfarim talk about this question. And a few are mechaven to the same thing. This is a little bit al pi Torat HaMaharal mi-Prague. He said that even the biggest slave, as long as he believes that he has a hope to be saved, he's gonna, one day it might work. Because he has what to hold on to. The Jews were able to tell themselves throughout Galut Mitzrayim, we're going to build enough bricks, we're going to do enough this, we'll do enough that. One day they're going to let us free. Or one day we'll figure out a way to revolt and get out of here. But then Paro went and said, no more supply for the bricks, go get it yourself. And the situation was like this, Chazal say. If they went to get it, the Egyptians were killing them saying, why are you stealing from us? And if they didn't go to get it, they were killing them saying, why aren't you building what we told you to build? So there was no more hope. And when a person has no hope, he has no future. So even though this Gzeirah seems to be the most trivial one, this was the worst one, because it took away the hope that they still had to hold on to. Comes the Gemara and says that just like it's a pasuk. The same way we had Geulah from Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make the Geulah Mashiach Tzidkenu inshallah very soon. So just like then, there was a situation that people realized there's nothing in my hands that I can do anymore. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts during Yemot HaMashiach situations in the world in our hands that we realize we have no control over. You want to know the answer to all the natural disasters in the world this past year? That's the answer. It was a chesed Hashem to bring Mashiach closer, with all the pain, horror, suffering, and loss that came along with it. Now, this is not a pessimistic message at all. Listen to how beautiful this is. If for whatever reason, I don't know Cheshbonot Shamayim, I'm not God's spokesman, but if for whatever reason somebody has to suffer, at least if a person suffers and something comes out of it, you look back one day and say it was worth it. But to suffer for nothing, that's crazy. I don't know if any of you bench press, I don't know if you're into that, but in case you bench press, I'm assuming sometimes you feel a little Charlie horse, a little sore, right? And what do? You smile, what a good workout. What do you mean, but this is hurting and that's hurting, yeah? Soon you're going to put ice packs on, and tomorrow you're going to go do it again. Yes, it hurts. But I'm getting stronger, something's coming out of it. Why does the Gemara take a whole Amud, almost all Amud, to write the signs of Yemot HaMashiach? And then take almost the whole Perek in Masechet Sanhedrin to discuss all these tragedies in quotations. Is to tell you that yes, you may struggle. And yes, it may be painful. And yes, it may hurt. But no, you're not hurting for nothing. Know that there's a day that Hazolim B'dima, that all those tears that you shed because of your pain, B'rinai Yiktzovo is going to flip around to a huge celebration. And when's that day going to be? Inshallah b'mehera v'yameinu b'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion. When Borei Olam is going to come back to Eretz Yisrael to build the Beit HaMikdash B'ayit Shlishi b'Viat Mashiach Tzidkenu hayinu kecholmim. All our suffering and all these things that we spoke about tonight will just be fire, fury, fantasy, fake news, and a dream. Because we'll wake up to a better tomorrow.